Hi, folks. Dr. White here with a Friday update for you. So, I've started grading your final drafts, and I'm going to give you a short guided reading here of one of your classmates' papers, Anna Barreto. Now, Anna mentioned to me in an email that she had passed her WPE in October, so we should all congratulate her for that. And having looked at her final draft here, I can see why. So this isn't going to be a very long video, maybe 5 to 10 minutes at the most. What I want to do is go through Anna's paper, and I want to look at a couple of things she does successfully that you might be able to do yourself in your own projects, either for Essay 1 or for Essay 2 to improve your work. So first of all, one of the things that I really appreciated about this paper was that it opens with, and you can see here, I'm going to follow my cursor, it opens with the essay question on top, which keeps you focused. And it keeps you as a writer with this in mind, that, hey, this is why I'm writing. I'm writing to determine if the other authors define their identities within the framework that Waters describes, or do they complicate it? So Anna begins with a great introductory paragraph here. And I can tell she really, really polished it because the grammar and mechanics are not perfect in this essay, but that's totally okay. But she really, I think, put some time into revising this opening paragraph here. And so she begins by pointing to today's society, how ethnicity is a major topic of discussion, and that people just pay attention to it. It impacts how we grieve, how we marry, and then she tells us what it is, the identification you receive when someone belongs to a certain custom or tradition. So we have an idea of it. Now, you might, Anna, have grounded some of these definitions in your sources. So, for instance, you might have given us, how does Waters define ethnicity? Just if there's any kind of, or if there's an outside source, even a dictionary definition would be okay for it. But your working terms are okay. I have no problem with that. I think rhetorically it's appropriate. Um, so she introduces what's at stake with ethnicity, and this is a term that some of you have encountered in my feedback. Stake. Why does it matter? What is at stake? So if someone's a stakeholder in a particular question, we say, okay, what do they have to gain or lose by interacting with this idea? So what do we have to gain or lose from ethnicity? Well, this is the question that's at the heart of all of these readings. So what does she say? She tells us that some people, mainly those who can identify as white, are able to have an option to identify as white American or the ethnicity of their ancestors. So that's a kind of privilege, right? This choice. She doesn't use the word privilege, but that's fine. So what does she do then? And this is where, as an introductory strategy, you really might learn a little bit. In the articles by Liu and Kofer, two authors tell their stories which coincide with Waters' topic of optional and symbolic identities mentioned in the article Optional Ethnicities for Whites Only. So notice that Anna's listing the writers here and saying they coincide with optional and symbolic identities. So she's applying these notions from Waters to Liu and Kofer. On the other hand, so there's a signal phrase that we're going to get contradiction, right? Lorino's experience and way of thinking did not fall into Waters' argument. So on the other hand, contradiction, the opposite. Here's this other writer who disagrees with Waters, or Waters isn't that useful. Um, and then, actually, I love, Anna, the way you end this paragraph. These writers did not get the chance to fully celebrate their heritage comfortably, nor did they get the opportunity to be their true selves in the open. There's your stake statement. There's why this topic matters. Ethnicity matters because it's a way to have pride in who you are and your identity, and to feel good about yourself and your family and where you come from. It's a way to have some self-esteem. So it matters that we're able to embrace our ethnicity openly on a human level. So what do I love about this essay next? Well, Anna doesn't beat around the bush. She starts by summarizing Waters. Waters talks a lot about the asymmetrical experience between black Americans and white Americans. And that is a phenomenal use of this turn of phrase, asymmetrical experience. I would love to know how you came up with that. Uh, Maybe tutoring? I don't know. Maybe something you read somewhere. Great turn of phrase. And so she goes on to explain a little bit more about Waters here, right? Waters mostly focuses on ethnicity being a social phenomenon as opposed to how we view it. So she's summarizing how Waters thinks about ethnicity in a way that sets us up to contrast with the other writers. And then what does Anna do? And this is what I really wanted to get to. Anna goes to the text In the article, Optional Ethnicity for Whites Only by Mary Waters, she mentions the concepts of oppositional and symbolic identities. So we're going to the text, right? And then look at these quotations. Waters defines oppositional identities when she states that the minorities in a variety of societies around the world who have experienced severe black mobility for long periods of time develop such oppositional identities. Severe blocked mobility. That's a stakes statement, right? Think about mobility, the ability to earn a little more money, maybe move around geographically freely. Optional ethnicity, right? Do I get to be Irish or not? Well, ethnicity can be used to block mobility, blocks upward mobility, earning power, privilege, access to governmental posts, things like that. Uh, and then let's look at this quotation. So first of all, Anna doesn't let this stand alone by itself. She introduces it using her own words. Waters defines oppositional identities when she states that. Those are Anna's own words, telling us that Mary Waters is the writer using this quotation. In stating this, Waters is conveying the message that people of oppositional identities struggle to flourish in society. Remember those quotation worksheets where I asked you to rephrase them and put them in your own words? That's what she's doing. And what this does is it establishes her voice. Anna's narrating this topic to us. She's explaining it. She's interpreting for Waters because we can't actually meet Waters because we don't know Waters. So we get Anna explaining to us how to read Waters. Waters goes on to mention that, quote, identity is to describe others of your group who do not join in the group solidarity as devaluing and denying their very core existence. Again, we're elaborating on Waters' argument here that identity is to describe who do join the group solidarity. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're getting into the idea of oppositional identity. And then Anna relates it to, again, more Waters. This is why it is not common for successful Asians to be accused by others of acting white in the United States, but it is quite common for such a term used by blacks and Latinos. Waters continues to state oppositional component to a black identity also explains how black people can question whether others are acting black enough. Now, I said here, a great quote to use, but what's at stake for black people accused of not acting black enough? So there's a couple ways Anna could answer this. One, and I would suggest she do this, go back to Waters and say, what does Waters say? But, I mean, she's already answered this question, right? The answer's up here. Severe blocked mobility, right? Severe blocked mobility is what's at stake to be accused of something like that. If you're accused of that, right, you're accused of kind of betraying your heritage, of not being true to yourself, of not honoring your family, maybe, or of, again, severe blocked mobility, right, of kind of like leaving behind people who are blocked in their mobility. So kind of leaving the group, so to speak. And well, what are the consequences to leaving the group? You lose community support. You might lose friends, family. People might just give you crap, and you might just not feel so great all the time. But these are all things that you, as the writer, can point out, and they're probably things that Mary Waters points out when she talks about the consequences of some of these types of identity and ethnicity. So this is an awesome paragraph that Anna has here on Mary Waters, and I particularly love the way, if you look at this middle section here, I highlighted the whole thing. If you look at this, the way that she moves between the sources, the quotations, and her own words, so she's using fragments of sentences, right? Minorities in a variety of societies around the world, but she uses her own words to introduce it. And then we get a restatement. Waters is conveying the message. Waters goes on to mention. So this is Anna summarizing, integrating her own language with the quotations from the text. This strategy of presenting the text allows her to show us the language, show us Mary Waters' argument, and give us the real details of how the idea works and why it matters. And this is something that I've noticed a lot of you are having trouble with, so I thought this example might be helpful to see. And that's probably the strongest section of this essay, Anna, although the rest of it is strong as well. And you can see she does the same thing with the quotations later on here in the Lorino paragraph. I'm sorry, this is Ortiz Cofer, states that you can leave the island, master the English language, travel, yada, yada. In this statement, she is conveying the message that although she tried her best to distance herself from Puerto Rico, she cannot escape her roots. She was instructed how to behave as a proper senorita, so society would not view her as a hot tamale or a sexual Firebrand. So again, notice these short phrases. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. Uh, about 5 words. Use this. You don't use entire sentences in your quotation. It forces you to use your own words to analyze it and connect it. And again, Anna did a great job of that throughout it. And Anna, this was a great paper. So I hope you don't mind me pointing it out as an example of some really great work. So as you go back to the drawing board, those of you who haven't yet submitted Essay 1, and as we move on into Essay 2, keep this quotation strategy in mind because it's a great way to force yourself to articulate some of the details of how the ideas work in the essays.